So welcome everyone to our effects of health on women's stress. Um, Sorry, my slide. There we go. Um, just for anyone new, this is kind of the goal of our Women's Laundry Network, who is hosting this. We were founded as an effort to connect, collaborate, and empower women in the vended laundry industry. And it's a space for support, resources, leadership, and inspiration. So we kind of just did what we usually ask people to do in the chat, is to say where you're from. So I think we did that already. So now I want to introduce our speaker. So not to confuse, there's two Danielles. I'm Danielle with CLA, the facilitator, but our speaker today is Danielle Sack. And she is a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, and has a ton of certifications. So we're in good hands with her. So I can stop sharing if you want to run your own presentation, Danielle.
I mean, either works. If you've already got everything up and running, that's fine too. You can pull mine up and
Okay,
we can jump right in.
let's see. Here we go. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me and joining today to chat about stress. This is an area of interest that I spend a lot of time talking about all day, every day. And so before we jump in, I'm just going to ask that everyone just take a moment and just kind of center yourself. So this is lunchtime for a lot of you, and so you've probably already been on the go today getting some work done, and just give yourself a moment to just pause and just check in with your breath, check in and notice, how are you feeling today? Maybe that's the first time you even pause to ask yourself, how are things going today? And just knowing that all the things that you have on your plate all impact the way that you breathe and the way that you feel. All of these different things, whether they're just tiny things that add up or a lot of big things, can all just impact the way that you show up. So giving yourself just a moment or so just to pause before we jump into another thing. And just breathe deep into your belly for a moment. And just take 2 more rounds of breath, just like that, breathing deep into your belly, knowing that no matter how much is on your plate, there's always a moment or two for pausing. You can always take a breath. And then when you are ready, you can open your eyes again if you have your eyes closed, and just come back to normal breathing. And just know that that is always an option there for you whenever those feelings of stress and anxiety are, popping up. So Danielle, if you want to go ahead and move forward in this slide deck. So my name's Danielle. Again, we've got multiple Danielles here representing the Danielles of the world. And I do yoga therapy, which is a little different from like yoga classes, which you might be familiar with. Yoga therapy is more about applying specific tools of yoga in order to support nervous system imbalances. So I work frequently with very busy women and moms, and we work together in handling stress. So applying some more stress resilience to the things that we can't control, and also working on taking things off of our plate, because as women, we are chronically taking on too much, whether we have time and energy for it or not. And I just have my contact information there if anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about yoga therapy. So Danielle, if you want to go forward again. So before we jump in, we've got just a small little group. So I welcome anyone who, if you see a pup on here, I'm a big dog person. So if you see a little pup on there and you're like, oh my gosh, especially that little Chihuahua that's almost underwater, I feel like a lot of us are there all the time. But you are welcome if anybody wants to just give an idea of where you're coming in today or not. welcome any opportunity for anyone to share and give me an idea of what we're working with today. If anyone,
I'm a little pug. I am sleepy. It's been a busy week and we talked about it's gloomy and like I have so much to do, but I just want to crawl under my covers I have two dogs. I want to cuddle with my dogs under covers.
yeah, yeah, I feel that. Anybody else have a dog they resonate with here?
I would say the motivated dog. It's a lot going on right now at CLA, so I'm just very motivated and ready to get things going.
I
Yeah.
love the motivated dog.
Let me see. Let me get some glasses.
That's
I had
my
fun
favorite
making that.
looking one. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think I'm the half drowning chihuahua, the overwhelmed one today. It's less cute.
I get
I
that.
relate to Nika. I feel like the motivated dog, and I love his glasses and hat and teeth too. So.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a little bit of motivation, a little bit of overwhelm, and a little bit of sleepiness. So yeah, we've got a range of stuff going on today. Danielle, if you want to just go forward to the next slide, that would be amazing. Oh, and before we really jump in, just so that everybody has an idea, there will be a little journal prompting at some various points throughout the presentation. So if you have a pen and paper handy, and you are also welcome to just mentally make note of things as we go through. So you're gonna have to deal with me today and my washer and dryer analogy or metaphor that I'm gonna offer you. Another thing that I had a lot of fun coming up with and putting together. So let's just take a moment here and just imagine for a moment that you just bought this nice new washer and dryer, and whether it's for your business or just your own personal home appliances that you purchased, and it's all shiny and fresh and new and ready to help clean some clothes and get everything looking fancy and fresh again. So Danielle, if you want to go forward to the next slide. And some days the laundry load looks like this, and it's not too bad. Maybe just one and done, and everything is all pre-sorted and ready to go. There's not too much on your plate. It doesn't feel like this overwhelming, daunting task. And then other days, if you want to flip to the next slide, it's going to look a little more like this. There's excessive amounts of dirty clothes, and it's going to require effort all day, and there's a high demand, and maybe it's a little stressful, and you're supplementing from your bathing suit collection for undergarments because there's nothing left because everything's sitting in that pile. And this could be a little dysregulating for you. There's a lot to do on top of everything else that there is to do. And your machine can handle it, but maybe it can't handle it every single day, right? Every day can't look like this because this is a lot. One thing I would ask is if your friend wanted to come and they were like, oh, my washer and dryer broke. Can I come down and use yours instead? You'd probably be like, no, like there's way too much here. There's no way that my washer and dryer can handle another load of laundry because we're already so backed up as we are. We have no time for this. So go ahead. Yeah, perfect. So what happens if every single day looks like laundry overwhelm day? Your appliances have no time for maintenance, right? There's no break to clean things out and to really make sure that everything is running appropriately the way that it should be. And eventually, over time, your appliances are going to start to break down, and they're not going to be able to function as well as maybe they could when they were brand new. So let's think about this for a moment in terms of what does it look like if we ourselves are the washer and dryer, right? How does your mind and body respond if you have just constant demands on you all day, every single day? And I'll just throw this in here just as an aside, that the demands that get put on women tend to be different than the demands that are put on men. Because, we're women here, we feel responsible for things like what's going on at home, whether you have kids or not. how clean the house is, how, if your home laundry is done, if the chores are taken care of. These are demands that just typically fall onto the women, and the women start to feel a little guilty about those. And so not only do we have the demands of our jobs and the things that are, providing an income for ourselves and our families, we also have further demand, and maybe we even put extra demand on ourselves for the things that are going on at home. And so while you might have a wonderful partner at home, and that's amazing, just typically speaking, most women are feeling more of the brunt of the balance of work and life than men are. And so the stress actually really increases for women, and we tend to hold on to it. We also have hormonal imbalances that cause us to hold on to a little bit more stress as well. So some more things that we can talk about as we go on. But typically women just feel the brunt of burning the candle at both ends all the time. So we can go into the next slide. Good. And you can hit it one more time. Okay, so just a moment for you. We'll pause here, and you can take a moment and just think about everything that you are responsible for on a daily basis. And this could be your work. It could be things that you do as a volunteer for nonprofits, your kids, if you have kids, pets, if you have pets. But just think about, on any given day, how many different things are you responsible for making sure that they go off without a hitch? And I'll give like a minute or two that you can either write it down or just mentally make a note. And then Danielle, if you want to click again, we'll have another little blurb at the bottom. And then once you finish up with that first portion, you can think about all of the things that you're doing to try and nourish yourself in some way. And those things it could be exercise, maybe it's just finding quiet breaks, reading your favorite books, just anything that you do. And the way that the parameter that I typically give for this is, it's something that is completely unproductive, and it's absolutely for you. It's not for anyone else. So some people might say, I love to take my dog for walks because that fills me up, and it might. But think about, what are the things that you're doing that are selfishly for you? I'll give you just about maybe 30 seconds to a minute more as you're finishing up writing some stuff down. And then Danielle, whenever you are ready to move to the next slide, that'd be great. If you're still jotting down some notes about things, feel free to keep with it. I'm just gonna move on and keep chatting here. So the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system. And you don't have to memorize these terms. You've probably maybe heard this in passing before, or maybe if you've, for anyone who's done any therapy or done any work with their stress in the past, you might have had some experience with this and understanding these terms. So this is a really simplified version of what your nervous system is, because the nervous system encompasses so much. But oftentimes the sympathetic is referred to as your fight and flight. So we think about it as like, a soldier in battle is activating their sympathetic nervous system. Or if, sometimes they'll be like, oh, a mom was able to lift a heavy car off of her child, even though she only weighed 120 pounds, right? That's probably an extreme exaggeration, but I'm just giving some examples of, things you may have heard in the past. And it's those life and death situations where people are able to like really do things that they had no idea that they were possibly capable of doing. And your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for that. It steps into play, it takes over when your life or the life of the people that you love are in danger in some way. The sympathetic nervous system hops in and is like, all right, I got this. I know you wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to take care of you. Your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest side. That is I'm going to sit here and read a book, even though I've got mountains of dishes that need to get done, or I have a lot of work to do. But right now, I just need to sit and relax and give myself a little bit of space to do something that's more relaxing. Your parasympathetic is peaceful and calming and very relaxed and laid back. So we need both sides, right? We need to know that if we're in a life-threatening situation, that our sympathetic nervous system is going to come online and be like, okay, I've got you. But we also need to be able to, we plan this big beach vacation and we go lay down finally in this beach chair that we have been waiting for months, and we sit down to relax and we can't because the parasympathetic nervous system is just not ready. It's not available to come online to you. And that's where we start to get into a little bit of trouble. So if we want to flip this to the next slide, that would be awesome. Thank you. So sympathetic nervous system is not just active during life-threatening situations. And this is something that becomes a little bit more surprising, I think, to most people. Your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for everything that you do. So if you got up this morning and you got out of bed and you fed yourself breakfast, you can thank your sympathetic nervous system for doing that. One of the things I hear all the time from clients is, I want to turn off my sympathetic nervous system and be all parasympathetic. I just want to be relaxed and calm. But that makes no sense, because then we would all just be these like blissed out blobs who would just be sitting around, not able to do anything. We wouldn't feed ourselves. We wouldn't shower. We would just lay around because we were just so blissfully content with where we are. We need that part of our nervous system, the other side, to say like, get up, get some food, you stink, take a shower. We need that part of us to keep ourselves moving forward every single day. So every single thing that you are doing, so when you wrote down that journal prompt of like, here's all the things that I am responsible for, and I don't even need to look at everyone's papers. My guess is that there was a lot of things that you're responsible for on a daily basis, and probably a small number of things that you put down that are nourishing you. And if you're flipped, if you've got a lot of things that are nourishing you and a lot less things that you're responsible for, you're crushing it, and you probably could do this presentation instead, because that's amazing. That's the flip side of what I tend to see. With most people, what I'm seeing is, here's everything that I need to do. Here's all the fires that I need to put out on a daily basis. And here's the 2 things that I do. I got a massage 3 months ago. And one time I took a bath and it was really nice, and I think I should do it again. But generally, there's not a lot of balance between the 2. Did you have a question, Nika?
Yeah, do we know, like, from a metric standpoint, like the percentage of people that kind of fall in is the sympathetic nervous like area?
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm actually not sure if we have like a specific network
Mhm.
or a data point that might point to exactly how many. I'm gonna have to look into that. That would be
Yeah.
that'd be a great thing to find out. I will say, as I'll get into a little bit later, in my experience in working with people in this situation, what tends to happen is most people think when they're in like all sympathetic, they just think it's their personality. Like I can't relax. That's just not who I am. I don't relax. I don't know how to. And so it would even be hard to get any type of data point on that because you'd have to first be aware that that's where you're existing in the first place, which is kind of challenging. So
Right.
that's a good question. I'm going to look into that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So we can go to the next slide.
There we go. Sorry, stuck.
Yeah, no worries. So right here, this is my fun little graphic. Clearly, I'm an awesome graphic designer. Canva and I had fun with this presentation. So when we talk about your sympathetic and parasympathetic, so our green little happy face is parasympathetic, that's our rest and digest side. And then our red and with our kind of crazy face, that's the sympathetic side. That's where we're really stressed out, right? And ideally, in a healthy nervous system, you're going to be somewhere in the middle. So something stressful happens, you have a long day at work, or your family's feeling a little crazy. Maybe you go to Thanksgiving dinner with some relatives that have some ideas that you don't really believe in, and things feel really stressful. I bring that up because that's happening next week, right? Things might get a little bit stressful, and you go over towards the red. You go a little bit more towards the, like, I'm feeling frazzled. Your body starts to feel a little hot. Your heart beats faster, and you just feel like you want to move. So for some people, it's like maybe you clench your hands really tight. For other people, maybe it's your shoulders lift up. But you have some physical response, your breathing responds, and then your mind responds. You probably walk away, thinking about what's going on. But then in a healthy nervous system, after the situation is done, you hopefully can just take a breath and come back to the center where you're living, right? You're living in the middle. And then you go on that nice beach vacation, or you just have a day off with your family, or you take a nice walk with your pets, and you go a little bit more into the green side, right? Because you can ebb and flow between these two. When it's time to relax, you can tell yourself, like, hey, we're just relaxing right now. We don't need to worry about anything else that's going on. But when you feel stress, you're feeling the stress, right? And then Danielle, if you could click twice, that would be great. But the more time that we spend over in the sympathetic zone, the more off-center we become. And so the periods of stress feel like really big periods of stress. And then the periods of relaxation, they don't really hit because you no longer live in that center point where you can ebb and flow between the two. Instead, you're living in, I'm either really stressed or I'm a little stressed. And this is like you go on your vacation and you cannot check out and read a book. You're constantly checking your email because you're like, somebody from work is going to respond to this thing that I've been waiting for, and it can't wait. If you have kids, this might show up as like you're trying to like control every single thing that your kids are doing because you're so nervous that something might happen. They might hurt themselves. They might, something could happen. So you have to oversee everything, right? It could come out as a little bit more controlling, because you're nervous, right? Your system is so fired up and expecting that there's going to be a stressful situation because you're staying in that zone. And go ahead and switch the slide again. And when you're living more in the red, when you're over on that side of the sympathetic nervous system, what ends up happening is that resting becomes a choice, right? A choice that you have to actively make. So you can't really ebb and flow between the two because you have to be actively saying, I'm going to check out and I'm going to let myself rest right now. I'm going to let my mind be quiet for a few minutes. I'm going to sit here and read this book that I like, that's just a fictional, fun book that I enjoy for no reason other than I just want to sit here and read this book. And that becomes really, really challenging. And this is where we get into, as you asked, Nika, like about people, how many people are in this situation. It's the people who get stuck into the side and then they think I have no option. That's just who I am. I can't go back and forth between the two because I'm all sympathetic nervous system. If I try to meditate, or if I try and take a breath, or if I try and just sit down and relax, I fill that time with something else, right? So it could be like, I remember a couple years ago, my husband said that he wanted to start cooking dinner more because he felt like it seemed like a really stressful time of day for me. And I was really grateful because I hate cooking dinner. Um, and when this first started, I would take that time to do other things. I would go and put the laundry away, or I would go and start, doing things for the kids or something. And then eventually I was like, what am I doing? I've been given an hour a day, every single day, because he likes to cook and I don't. I'm going to take this time to just do something for myself, right? But that's a choice. It's a choice that you have to actively make every single day. So we can go to the next slide.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, you're good. So this is the space where if you are all the way in the red, and I kind of covered that with the last slide, you think things are like you live in a rushed pace, when in reality, it's just a matter of choosing to calm down your nervous system. And that can be really hard. And it can feel like there's not a lot of time for that. So we can go to the next slide. So in addition, so that's kind of like the last slide was more about what does it look like what you might see as symptoms of being stuck in that sympathetic overwhelm. But there are a whole host of symptoms that like medical chronic symptoms that you could be experiencing if you are living in that stressed out state. I wrote achy back because the back is something like achy low backs is just something that I see all the time. It could be aches or pains anywhere in your body because the pathways that send like that alert your body like, oh, we're stressed, we're experiencing stress right now. They're the same pathways for pain, right? So the more you're experiencing that chronic stress, the more likely it is that you're experiencing muscle tension and pain in places that if you had the ability to just relax and let yourself settle, some of that pain would actually decrease. And that's something that I'm seeing people for all the time is, like I've been to PT, I've been to the doctor, I've been to the chiropractor. They all tell me nothing's wrong, but I'm still in pain. And so then we just work on calming the nervous system down. What does it look like if you're able to de-stress? What does it look like if you are able to slow down? And for the most part, a lot of that pain starts to either decrease or go away, which is pretty fascinating. Of course, sleep disturbances, if you're constantly feeling like I got to do more, there's more that I need to do, then you've got no time for sleep, right? That side of the nervous system is kind of foreign to you. And so engaging with it more often can help resolve some of those sleep disturbances. There's also a lot of psychological challenges. So if you've been in talk therapy and you've been seeing a therapist for a really long time, but you haven't really seen any change, you're still feeling that stress and you're still feeling the effects of that stress. One of the things can be really helpful is to do something that's more embodied, right? Because your stress isn't just in your head, it's existing in your body as well. So we can go to the next slide. I don't have to stay here forever talking about symptoms, right? Okay, another journal prompt for you. And this one is more about just getting an understanding of a little bit of awareness of what does it feel like for you to have stress. And a totally reasonable answer for many of these is I have no idea, right? If you've been living in stress for so long that you haven't taken the time to really like just be like, where is my breath? What do I feel in my body? It's entirely possible that some of these things you just you're not really aware of. So go ahead and we'll take like a minute or so. And if you have something that you want to write down, or if you just want to make a mental note, that's fine too. And I'll give you the option if anybody is interested in, sharing a little bit. Like I said, we've got a nice small intimate group. So if anybody wants to share anything that they're, picking up on their own stress or their own reactions to stress, you are welcome to pop off mute and offer that information.
You mentioned in the slide before about some of like the achiness, and I feel when I get stressed, it's like the back of my neck. I can just feel it stiffen up and get tight, and you try to massage your own neck to like alleviate some of it. But I think I've always kind of carried it in the neck and shoulders, that sort of tightening area. But I don't feel my breathing really like, I guess I have no idea, but I don't feel like my breathing really picks up, or it's more that just kind of feeling it in my neck and shoulder area.
Yeah. Super common to feel it in your neck and shoulders. And if you can identify, this is a really great, it's the reason that I asked these questions, how does it show up in your body, is that when you're experiencing a stressful event, there tends to be a part of your body, for many it's neck and shoulders, for some it can be the hips. Like I said, some people will clench their fists. This is my son's go-to. He gets really mad and I'm like, okay, bud, like let's loosen up your hands here. And so you'll have some part of your body that just unconsciously is going to clench up because it's stressed. And then, you might go to do something like get a massage, and then that's a little uncomfortable for some, right? You've got this person that you don't really know coming in and rubbing you down. So what area of your body is going to tighten up? It's going to be the area that always tightens up when you're stressed. And then the next day you're thinking to yourself, well, that's weird. I got a massage and my shoulders are still feeling really tense, right? So yeah, that's a good one. Anyone else have a little share before we move on?
I know I totally get anxious, and it's very interesting because I get so excited about going out of town and like traveling. I love it so much. And also there's this whole flood of things that I have to do. So going into the SMS, right? And then yeah, I I get tired, I get overwhelmed, I cannot make enough lists, like all the things. And I know like physically I don't know where that. I think it's like up here, and it just like I get headaches and like I can't, my energy level is lower. And I want to be excited, like I want to continue that enthusiasm like through the preparations of going on the trip, and not get to the trip and be like, I'm so freaking exhausted. You know what I mean?
Mhm. And then you bring it with you into your trip, right? Because you went so far into the red side and there was nothing green. There was no parasympathetic that was like, hey, this is fun. We're going to go have a trip right now.
Yeah.
And you get there and you think like, well, what if this happens? And what, I wonder what's happening at home and I wonder what's going on here, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I heard I can't remember where this quote comes from. It's in one of my many, many yoga books that was like, you should dedicate at least 15 minutes a day to quieting your mind. And if you're too busy to dedicate 15 minutes a day, then you should dedicate 30 minutes. Because if you're so busy, then you really need more time to quiet your mind, right? Like you really need more because you're so busy. So to counter that, yeah. Anyone
Nika,
else?
did you have something to add?
No, I can relate to you. Anytime that I have to go out of town and pack, I get so overwhelmed. Like I'm literally like my shoulders are hurting, like Danielle said. Like I can feel just like the tension. I get headaches. I mean, like I pack from a packing list and all this, but it's something about like just going out of town, just like everything you got to do to get ready to go out of town. Always open as much as I try, and I'm just like, don't get overwhelmed. I'll like talk to myself and be like, it's the same thing you've been going through, like just pack and be done. I still get that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And normally I end up like waiting until the last minute for that reason, just not to feel those effects of my body that I don't want to feel from having a pack to go out of town.
And then when you wait last minute, that stresses you out more because now you're like, oh my God, I'm leaving tomorrow morning.
Yep. And I'm packing in the morning.
Yeah. Travel is so dysregulating. And then
Yes.
packing at the last minute is so dysregulating.
Right. Even like Monica said, like even if you know you are packing to go lie out on the beach, like it's still overwhelming for me. Now, granted, like once I get there on the beach, I'm fine. Like no stress, nothing at all. It just goes wherever it goes. But it's just leading up to that point, it's very, very stressful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, travel is such a dysregulating thing. And then, I mean, airports, so dysregulating, right? Like there's
Yeah.
like, get through here, take off your shoes, put this bag here, go faster, faster. And you're just like, okay, I don't know where to go. So yeah, that's great. That's great that once you get there, you're able to check out and go into your parasympathetic. That's
Right.
perfect.
That's the good part that I got going. Cause like you said, some people will go on vacation and still kind of consume like in their phone and still working and should be relaxing. That part I have under control. It's just the getting to pack
Yeah.
and, like the airport and all of that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. If we don't have any additional comments, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so if you're feeling the stress, so if some of this is like picking up and resonating for you, let's talk a little bit about like, what do we do? Because there are some really simple fixes. And from what I've seen in the past, a lot of people just have some little things that they could apply to their daily lives that can really help. Some people need like a major lifestyle overhaul because they're just taking on so much that like, like I've had people who I'm in here and we do a lot of habit stacking. And I'll say, okay, can you add 3 breaths, just 3 deep breaths? That's it. Right before you brush your teeth at the end of the day. And it's like, they'll come back in 3 weeks later and be like, I could not find the time to add 3 breaths into my day. And then it's like, okay, we need a lifestyle overhaul here. We're taking on too much, right? So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so some stressors are completely unnecessary, right? One of my favorite stories, I think I shared this with Monica, which was a back when the box cake mix was invented. If you've read Atomic Habits, you've probably read this story because I think that's where I originally heard it. When box cake mix was originally invented, it was just dehydrated ingredients and you added water. And it was invented because of the Depression. Not as many people were making cakes because, like those were luxurious at that time. To buy eggs was so expensive, and flour. And to buy everything, you had to buy so many things, not just what you needed for one cake. So there was this brilliant idea, like let's put everything you need for one cake into one box. All you add is water, you bake it, and it comes out exactly the same every single time. But then after the Depression, once people were spending more money, box cake sales plummeted and they couldn't figure out why. And so they hired all of these, behavioral psychologists to come in and investigate, like, why are women, because it was women who would be doing the shopping, why are they not coming in and buying this thing that it gives them a perfectly cooked cake every single time, perfectly baked cake every single time? And the reason was because women felt like it wasn't enough work. They felt like they weren't the ones who were baking the cake because they weren't adding the eggs and adding the sugar and adding the oil. And so box cake creators then took some of the ingredients out. So now you have to add that's why today when you make a box cake, you have to add all the extra stuff into it. You no longer have the ability to just add water and move on, because women felt like I have to do more. Otherwise I didn't bake the cake. And last time I checked, nobody cares how many ingredients you added to a cake to make it delicious. It's just delicious either way. I'm a big cake fan too. So, this is kind of like women in a nutshell. We want to make everything bigger. We want to add more to it. We want to make it as perfect as possible. But that just all adds into our stress, and it all takes up the time that we could be committing to a little bit of self-care and a little bit of selfish time for ourselves. So if you want to click again, so if you've got, I've got a little journal prompt there. If you have 5 things that cause stress in your life that you don't really need, right? Some things you don't have to take on. And for those stressors, maybe it's like a boundary with a person who, they're a friend, but they're always asking for favors. So maybe there's some boundary of like, hey, I don't have the ability to take more on right now. We think back to the washer and dryer analogy, right? When I said, if you had a friend who needed to come use your washer and dryer, even though your washer and dryer was constantly in use, more than likely you'd be like, no, sorry, we just don't have the ability to support that right now. And yet when you are drowning with all of the things that you have to get done and somebody comes in and they're like, hey, I really need you to do this favor, more than likely you're going to say yes. You're going to be like, yeah, of course. I feel like I have to help you. You're my friend. You're my partner, my kid, my whoever. So I feel like I have to support that in some way. So for stressors that are just unnecessary, that aren't progressing you forward, they're not filling you up in any way, can you create better boundaries? Can you get good at being like, sorry, I just can't support that. I want to support it, but I just can't. I have enough on my plate right now. Nika, did you have a question?
Not a question, but more like a comment. So one of the ladies at the gym, she would say that she would get stressed out like every time someone asked her to do something or to, I guess, like invite her to an event, she would get stressed out like just from the invite because she knew she had so much going on. So she would just like automatically say yes, which will lead to more stress for her because she's like, okay, I've already like had a list of things that I got to do. Now I've just committed to this event as well. So I told her what I do is I just tell people, can I get back to you on it? Because I mean, at that point, like it does not like create any stress for you because you're not answering right then. Instead of just saying like, yes, I can make it or no, I can't make it. And then once you think about it and like kind of like look at everything you got going on for the week, then you can say like, yes, I can make it or no, instead of just answering right then. And I feel like people tend to just like feel like they got to give you an answer right then and there. And the person sometimes not even asking for an answer. They're just either inviting you or just making a statement or whatever the case may be. So like looking at this list, like I definitely like try to create boundaries, but or just good at saying no or just not saying anything. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'll let you know, or thank you for the invite, but let me see. Let me get back to you.
Yeah, for sure. And this can come back to the original journal prompt that we did of, how much do you have going on right now on a daily basis and how much are you putting back into yourself? If you come back and you look at that and you say, I've got all these things on my plate right now, and nothing for that second prompt, like nothing is there that's filling me up in any way. So I'm just giving and giving and giving. Think about it as like my teacher always calls it an energy bank account. She's like, if you thought about how much you're filling your bank account up by like doing things that are really nourishing for you. And when you think about how much you're giving out to other people, if you had your last, 20 energetic dollars in your bank account and someone was like, I need you to come to this thing, and it's going to be like a big event and it's going to be a little overwhelming, would you say yes if you knew that you only had 20 energetic dollars in your bank account? And so sometimes creating that awareness, going back to that journal prompt, like where am I giving out and where am I putting back in? And if there's a big imbalance, that's a no. Sorry, I can't. I've got a date with my bathtub tonight because I just need a night to like chill out and relax. And maybe friend gets mad because they're like, hey, like, you're doing something where you could be coming to my, my birthday party or whatever. But sometimes those boundaries are just super essential. Yeah. I love that.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. So Danielle, if you want to go to the next one. And then we've got some stressors, they're just unavoidable, right? So my kids, for example, they're very stressful to me. Like they stress me out all the time. I can't get rid of them. We're too far in at this point. Like they're 9 and 11. What am I supposed to do? Right? They're around. There are a lot of things that I can do that make things less stressful. For example, they both want to play all the sports in the world. And I can tell them, like, yeah, you might be available Wednesday evenings to go to this extra activity that you want to do, but I am not available to have another uniform to wash and to drive you to this and to be responsible for like one extra activity, which is going to add another app onto my phone because for some reason we have a different app for every sport that you can imagine, right? And so becoming aware of like, yes, I have this thing that's unavoidable, but how can I lessen the burden that's on me, right? The next piece is becoming aware of how your mind, body, and breath respond to those stressors. So I think Danielle was the one who brought up that her chest and shoulder, or her neck and shoulders feel the stress. So when you are in those moments where like, okay, today was a really busy day, I had a lot on my plate, can I feel into what that tension is in my shoulders? And then can I let it go and just actively work to notice every time your shoulders are creeping up around your ears? You might not even realize how much tension you're holding in some areas because it just becomes an automatic response that your body has. And so sometimes even leaning into it. So if it's chest and shoulders for you, maybe when you're feeling stressed, you lean into it more and then you just exhale and just let your shoulders drop because you're telling your body is saying, hey, we're feeling really stressed right now. And then you are sending the signal back like, nope, we're not. We're okay. We've got this. We're going to relax those muscles because it's all right. We don't have to feel the stress from this. We don't have to be stressed because, our dog is being crazy right now. We don't have to be stressed because, this vendor that I work with is coming at me really angry. I don't have to ride his waves of emotions, right? I can calm myself down and not take on any more than I need to, right? So in those situations, a lot of awareness of what your stress response, and that is the bulk of what I do, is just helping people become more aware of their stress response and helping them come out of the stress response so they can do it on their own anytime, anywhere. And so then we can move forward. I think there's only like 2 more slides. This is actually from NPR. They did this great graphic and I use it all the time. 50 ways to take a break. So if you're living in that world of like, I cannot do yoga, I can't meditate, I can't have a quiet mind, what are some other things that you can do that help you calm down that don't require you to be completely silent? If I have someone who's totally in their stress response all the time, the first thing I recommend to them is read a book. Read a book that's not a self-help book, not an educational book. It's not going to quiet your brain because you're going to be thinking about the story, but it is going to stop you from ruminating on all of the stress that you're holding and everything that you've got going on at the moment. Sometimes it's as simple as like, can you just slow down? Can you go for a walk and say, why am I racing right now? I've got nowhere to be. Can I just walk a little slower? Can I eat a little slower? Right. So if we're stressed out and we're living in that stress response, our meals look like that quick, and probably doing it at our desk in front of more stressful emails and things that a big to-do list, right? So can you slow down so that you can take some brain breaks? And you might think to yourself, if I slow down, I'm never going to get caught up on everything. But the reality is you're more likely to be more productive after you've taken a break, right? So giving yourself that break becomes even more productive for you. And then we can go on. Next slide, please.
Can I add something really quick, Danielle?
Yeah, of course.
Danielle S. One of the things that was on that slide was turning off electronics. And I won't get political here, but I'll just say, like, our exposure to an excess of media is like, I don't want to be the one living under the rock. And also, I feel like I have to protect my sanity and heart for what is going on in the world. And so, if there's a real balance or a real struggle for me, to be very intentional about what it is that I'm paying attention to and when and for how long. And so, like, that's like for one of my stressors, I listed like technology and all of that encompasses that, like, not just how to work it, right? But the access to it and all the things that it gives me access to.
Yeah. Yeah. Our nervous systems were not designed for like the constant information that we get, right? Like our nervous systems were never designed to know what's going on halfway around the world, nevertheless, to see photos and videos and also see things happening real time. Like our bodies were not intended for that, right? Our nervous system is really designed so that you can feel something that's happening to you or to your loved ones and give you that response. We were never like this, we live in a world that is just designed to stress us out, really. And it's constant. And so, yeah, you are absolutely correct. Turning it off sometimes is really, really helpful. And also, you might miss some details of what's going on. I remember I turned off all social media at some point during like the pandemic. And when I finally went back on, it was like lots of things had changed and shifted. And I was like, what is happening? I don't even know. I have no idea because I haven't talked to friends. My husband and I went offline and we had no access to what was going on in the world. And so, yeah, there is a little bit of balance there. Yeah, that's a good one to add.
Thanks.
Danielle, did you have something else to add?
A slide before, when you were talking about some things to do, I was just thinking like, the ability to set boundaries and say no has become much easier with age. At younger ages, I probably was a little more uncomfortable to say no and set those boundaries. But as you get older and hopefully wiser, I don't feel bad. And when you use the example of, telling a friend, I'm sorry, I don't want to go tonight. I just kind of want to veg out on the couch, like if they're a good friend, they understand that because they've had those nights too. If they're going to get upset because you don't want to do something, then, I don't know, maybe evaluate the friendship a little bit. But, I think I feel much better about saying no or not now type of thing than I did in my younger years.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, and you are correct. If if you articulate it, well, and it doesn't have to be like, if someone's like, come to my birthday party, there's going to be 200 people there. And you're like, oh, 200 people, that feels overwhelming. It doesn't have to be like, no, I don't want to go to your birthday. That sounds terrible, right? But it can be like, oh, I've got 4 other things going on that day. And that's just that's going to be a long and exhausting day. So I'm not sure if I can really make it. I'm so sorry, right? It doesn't have to be like boundary setting doesn't have to be this like, absolutely not. And if your friend knows that you're just taking care of yourself, then a good friend, yeah, you're right. A good friend is going to be like, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Here's just a couple, we're going to wrap up here we're right at time. Just a couple of micro practices that I put on here. These are my favorite things. If I was going to suggest just a couple things that you can add in, and you can habit stack these types of things. So if you have a really stressful day and you don't have the time to sit and relax and do something that makes you feel good, the first one is just, can you pause and just take a couple rounds of breath deep into your belly, low and slow. One of the easiest ways to tap into calming down your nervous system is just to breathe deep and slow. 5 things meditation. You can look this up online, or you can email me and I can send you a meditation to listen to. It's a really simple one that once you've got all the things, it's just you're using your senses to kind of check in with the present moment. It's a really common one, and once you know it, you can do it in a minute and just help bring you back down. Check in, body, breath, and mind. Those are the 3 things that when we're feeling stressed, our mind starts to go into a frenzy, our body gets tight and tense, and our breath we start to hyperventilate is what happens. So checking in with those areas. And if you were in the camp of like, I don't even know what my breath does, just listen for it. Just see, like, is your breath, when you're stressed out, is your breath up here or is it down low? Is it fast or is it slow? Standing cat and cow is just creating some extension and flexion with your spine. You have nerve endings that run all the way down your spine that send messages all the way out through your body. And so getting your back moving, and you could move all the way around. You could just move back and forth in extension and flexion. Just another really easy way to just get in and feel like, what is my body feeling? And then finally, focus on one thing at a time and do it slowly, which might feel counterintuitive for productivity. I promise it will pay off in the long run. And then we can go to what I think is our final slide. Yes. Any questions or comments? I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's everyone's lunch break.
This is really helpful. I think, honestly, when you say to take a break, this was my break today because today is kind of a crazy day. So this was my break in doing something for myself, is listening to your presentation. So thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, this was great. I think the biggest takeaway for me is just to pause and just take those deep breaths, because you definitely feel better after, and it's something quick that you can do. So thanks for giving those tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the breath you could do anywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
if you happen to be driving in the car and you're waiting to pick up a kid. I've done that before. We're just like, you're stressed because where are they? And we got to get here and whatever. I mean, that's like even a time that you're sitting there, just take a couple breaths. Like, we'll get there when we get there.
You will get there when you get there. And that's the reality of like when you're sitting in your traffic and you feel your body tensing up, you feel yourself get a little hot and you feel that like, oh my gosh, like why aren't we moving? But the reality is that like you will get there eventually. Just might not be when you want to, and that's going to have to be okay. Right.
The other thing that wasn't really in the list of what can help, and your traffic thing made me think of last night. I was stuck and I called Nika and I was yelling and kind of swearing, and sometimes venting to someone helps you feel better, because we were supposed to be somewhere and I could not get there and I was frustrated. So I took it out on poor Nika, like not at her, but you know what I mean? She had to listen to me rant and rave and vent about that I can't get it where I need to go. So talking to someone,
That helps.
sometimes, and venting, I mean, it just helps sometimes. You just need to get it out and then, okay, I was fine by the time I got there.
Yeah.
And just hearing somebody, reassure you like, yeah, that is really stressful. I'm really sorry that that's happening. Sometimes just hearing that and getting that feedback, you're like, okay, yeah, I have a right to be this mad. I'm not that mad anymore, but
Mhm.
I know, and it's silly. It's over traffic, but it just like
Yeah. Awesome. If there's no other questions, then we can head back into our days, take a few breaths before you go back into your day.
Yeah, and I had just a couple upcoming events. Sorry, just need to switch over. So I'm doing that quickly. Again, thank you so much, Danielle. That was great. So if you need another way to de-stress, our last Women's Laundry Network event of this year is going to be our holiday happy hour. So virtual on the 12th, 4 to 5 Central. If you'd like to bring a beverage of choice, that's fine. If not, it's just going to be, we did it last year and it was just a nice way to kind of end the year. We talked a little bit, asked people if they wanted to share something great that happened this year or a goal they had. But it was very informal. So hopefully we get a good amount of people to participate. And then if you want to do more connections live, we have 2 more events this year. Next week, I'll be doing that whole packing airplane thing, heading to Georgia. One night doesn't stress me out packing though. It's the long vacations. And then we're doing one in Northern California on the 5th. That is their holiday happy hour. So that is it for the year. Thank you very much. I know we had a nice small group today. Monica asked, we have someone who kind of edits these recordings, posts it on YouTube, and then I'll send that link out to, because we did have a few more register that for probably whatever reason weren't able to attend. So thank you guys very much. And thank you again, Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You.
Appreciate you. Guys, have a good day.
You too.